Right. This clip in the beginning of the next one will be the last bit of this annoying bit of cropping the footage to get things to look kinda right. Then things will look more clear like they did for most of the game up to this point. Sorry for the little visual issue there. In the after years, going through the Devil's Road is a legitimate dungeon. Now, the in-universe explanation for it being so simple for us in this game is because somehow being a paladin makes it a casual teleport, instead of something we have to fight our way through and possibly get lost in. I'm pretty sure the other explanation is that the game designers threw in far too many dungeons into this game that they found out they couldn't fit anymore, and decided that the Devil's Road needed to be the thing on the cutting room floor. It doesn't really hurt the pacing all that much, but then the story as a whole is kind of, just not doing it for me. Anyway, apparently the dialogue in the training room hasn't changed in the least. Well, at least some other conversations in town have changed. Right. Of course the man we most want to see isn't home. I suppose that would have made things too easy or something. Right. That's still locked. Maybe someone we talked to in town has the key at this point. So, the rest of town knows exactly what happened to Sid, but not his own daughter? That feels a bit off. So, even this far in, the weapon and armor shop are still unavailable here. If you liked him so much, you should be able to recognize the guy in front of you. Oh yes, how oppressive. The king is preventing people from dancing. Not that dancing looks all that good with these sprites, or that there's all that much the game can pull off to make things seem oppressive compared to the start of the game in this town. Definitely a bit of an issue that the overall story has some solid broad strokes, but once you get down to the details, things just feel like they're missing. Well, considering Baron is at war with the rest of the world, I doubt there's going to be all that much trade or travel here anyway. Not that the world around here is detailed enough to really care about that kind of commerce. Funny how Cecile didn't gain a cape until he left the Baron military, but every hostile soldier we've seen has one of a very similar color. Why does he look more in uniform now than when he was actually part of that army? It's also funny that we've stumbled onto one of the supposedly dead members of our team so casually in a damn bar. Sure, we're gonna end up fighting against him and the Baron troops he's drinking with, but still, it kinda calls into question if Edward and Rydia died as well, which loses all of the gravitas of that moment. They certainly do want to make us smaller, that's for sure. Shame they shrunk someone who isn't even a dedicated melee fighter, so they haven't even weakened him in a way that would actually hamper us in an actual fight. Tellus spells will still hit them with just as much power as they would have if he was full-sized. Not that magic seems to have all that much impact around here at the moment. The weaknesses of regular soldiers isn't quite as obvious as it might be for some kinds of monsters. Still, it's interesting to note that these soldiers are several steps up from the soldiers they were throwing around at Fabul earlier. Despite the constant party changes and Cecile's drop in levels, the enemies are still getting more powerful as we keep progressing through the game. I kinda wish that Cecile was capable of hitting as hard as he did when he was still a Dark Knight, though. Really doesn't feel like the game did a good job of selling me on the idea of the class change being a legitimate upgrade, considering he gained the ability to use cure spells, when there is pretty much always a much better white mage with him on a team. And that takes care of the two soldiers. It might have been better for them if Yang was fighting alongside them, but... Right. So we don't have any items to cure Minnie in our bag right now, but I somehow doubt that the stores sell anything that would cure this specific thing. Seriously, why does it feel like the stores in this game are less worth visiting than the first Final Fantasy? Apparently being shrunk means we lose our sword for a bit. That is a blatant punch animation there. By the way, why do our mini forms not look anything like our full-sized forms? Why is he even flinching when he's taking 1 or 2 damage? He should be completely no-selling that kind of minimal damage. I'm not exactly a fan of how this fight is going, even if we're winning this 4-on-1 situation. I somehow doubt that Yang is gonna have this much health when he rejoins the party. But then it's not like I've got a pen and paper and I'm keeping track of how much damage he's taking in this fight. Seriously, can you just call this a day, Yang? We've got other things to do out here. Probably would have been better to have Cecile do some healing since he's in no physical condition to use his sword right now. But we're not exactly being punished here for not using Azuna on Cecile or any other possible tactical mistakes. This is just a fight that's gonna go on for a bit too long. I just have no emotional connection to anyone who's out here right now. I don't really feel anything for the fight itself. And, dear God, I just wish that the status effects that we were getting hit by were things that they would sell items to cure. Something here doesn't quite feel right to me. By the way, can we please have some way to measure how much of the fight we've got left to deal with? I know we never get the health bar of our enemies in these games, but still, it's something I would always appreciate having. And of course, our white mage doesn't have anything to remove the mini status. That's only something that Tella has. So, just... I know this is a pretty linear game, but in some ways it feels like they needed to work on a few details a bit better. Ah, well, at least that fight's finally done, and apparently, setting the man on fire repeatedly somehow removed his temporary plot-induced amnesia. But considering how mind-numbingly dumb this part of the plot is, I don't think it's even right to call it part of the plot. It's just... You mean to tell me that the one character I actually give a shit about in this cast was swallowed by the random sea serpent out of nowhere? What is with the writing around here? The opening hour was so amazing, but pretty much everything after that just has not been able to measure up to the writing quality of that opening hour. So, the innkeeper isn't going to comment on the fact that the man we're taking with us was in charge of that pair of soldiers. And good God, if we're gonna have a private conversation somewhere, can we do it in a room with a damn door? This barely feels more private than back in the bar, considering how few people were even in there after we killed those 2 soldiers. Again, the only characters that bounce off each other around here are the twin siblings. There's no synergy between anyone else around here. No real sense that these people are becoming friends somehow. They're just part of the same party because we've all been forced together by the plot. Right. Of course he has something that would make entering the castle less of a pain in the ass. Fate has been on Cecile's side so hard that it's impossible to really feel all that much tension as the events unfold around him. I mean, sure, the player can screw things up, and we have to start over again from the previous save, but narratively speaking, everything bad that's happening to Cecile has been, at worst, a minor inconvenience. Though the biggest inconvenience is probably the level discrepancy because of its class change. Anyway, kind of hoping we're gonna be able to get Yang some better gear, but then it's not like the stores in this game have given us all that much. And of course, the people in the bar haven't changed any dialogue despite the fact that they saw us beat those soldiers down. Would it have really been too much to ask for the waitress to say something about being glad we kicked their asses? Well, not much to gain from the weapons side of the store. Wish I could find it in me to feel disappointed by that. Still, I suppose I could have gotten the lightning staff for the 2 black mages on the team. Maybe I will a bit later on, but I was really hoping for something for Cecile or Yang. I'm pretty sure the Kempo gi and headband were things that Yang had on before we split off from him last time. Though I could be misremembering. It's not like I generally pay all that much attention to equipment in these sorts of games. I just look for whatever improves what we've got. But it's been hard to ignore the fact that the stores just haven't been offering anything that would really make it feel like we're getting more ready for what's coming ahead. Right. Well, I suppose even just a minor upgrade is better than nothing, so... Is there a reason that the lightning staff is somehow more powerful than the fire or ice staffs we got in the previous town? I'm pretty sure the fire and ice staffs improved things by the same amount when we were looking at them, and last time I checked, the series generally treats lightning as the same as fire and ice. I know, it's not that much of a thing. Still, I need something to talk about in this clip. It's damn long. Notice, they have cures for being turned into a frog, being turned into stone, and being blinded or poisoned, but not for Minnie. I just do not get the decisions for the stores and some of the attacks we end up dealing with around here. It's just... yeah. By the way, can you give me more details about that torture? The town's population level is the exact same as the beginning of the game, and I'm not seeing any forms of destruction or damage. Pretty sure that means we're going to get rid of the Baron Key since we have no more use for it, but I suppose that's more of a Resident Evil thing than Final Fantasy. Still, I'm really hoping we won't be carrying that key around for the rest of the game, considering we've done everything it was meant for. pretty sure we've already fought this kind of fish and that kind of alligator before plenty of times. If they are pellet swaps and not just a complete rehash of older enemies, I'm having a hard time telling, though I'm sure they are a bit more durable than they used to be, either way. Really feels like Cecile might be underleveled for this stage of the game. Should I have spent more time grinding or something? Would grinding have even done all that much, since Cecile's class change sent him back down to level 1? And I assume he was supposed to be around the same strength as he was at level 20 or so as the Dark Knight. It only feels like Cecile is lagging behind, though, but not anybody else. Everyone else on the team feels like they're doing reasonably well. Though part of that probably has to do with how new party members are scaled up based on what point of the story we're at, or at least it feels like that. And that sort of thing makes it very tough to judge if you're properly prepared for whatever is going to come next. Grinding in this game is just not as encouraged as something like Pokemon. We're still making progress, and at a pretty reasonable rate, but I'm pretty sure this sort of thing is exactly why the endgame dungeon is going to feel so miserable compared to the rest of the game. Until we get to that point, the game's difficulty is so subtle that you can feel fairly comfortable for quite a while with little to no real prep whatsoever. We're not invincible. If you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be especially rough, but I have not been feeling all that pressured as we keep going forward, and we have not been punished for any mistakes. Definitely not a fan of hidden paths in general in a game like this. The Pixel Remaster would at least let you see at least part of the path when you start walking through it. But in the PSP version of the game, in the original, you are completely blind. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be blind through those paths in the 3D remake of this game as well. I'm pretty sure from the PlayStation 1 games onwards, the series never goes with hidden paths ever again. It's possibly a thing in Final Fantasy III, and definitely a thing in 4 and 5. Not too sure about 6. It's actually kind of funny how hidden paths just never really feel like something that people consider a major part of the Final Fantasy series when it's in some pretty damn major games in it. Possibly because for a lot of people around the world, the first game for them was 7. Hell, 7 was my first Final Fantasy. So, I can kind of understand that. Part of me is pretty damn eager to eventually get to 7, and I have some mixed feelings about the remake of 7 at this point. But I just do not know if I'm gonna skip to 7 at some point or just do a lot of games before 7. Considering some of the supplies we get from random encounters, it makes it just a bit less tempting to buy healing items from the stores. Definitely more comforting to see our sprite when we're wandering around than not. Not that it makes any difference in the fights we've been going through. As a side note, why does this game insist on sending aquatic enemies at us when the battle zone we're fighting in looks dry as a bone? It should not be that complicated to have the fish creatures attack us when it looks like things are wet around us. Well, the floodworms are certainly throwing plenty of tsunamis at us despite the lack of visible water outside of their spells here. Okay, so apparently electrofish absorb lightning. Not too surprising, it's in the name. Still, a bit annoying since lightning is kind of my go-to answer for fish-style enemies. Possibly due to the fact that Pokemon has done a good job of teaching me that electricity is strong against water. Let's see if it's more effective to use ice against these guys. Nothing amazing in terms of damage, but at least they aren't absorbing our attacks anymore. That's an improvement, even if we aren't getting any especially brutal hits in against these bastards. Yeah, no surprise that fire did pretty much nothing to the flood worm there. But it was worth checking for the hell of it. I'm sure the higher level spells like Blizzara would do more damage, but I have no clue how long it's going to take for us to reach the next point where we can recover MP, or how many more times we're going to fight against this same configuration. Again, the main thing with random encounters is that they can wear you down quite a bit. It's a question of, do we retreat back to the town to heal and grab some varying items? Or do we keep going? A question that the Pixel Remaster completely removes from the equation, since there's a simple button to turn off random encounters altogether. I'm not really sure why the various PC releases for so many Final Fantasy games give you a button to completely remove random encounters on a whim. Sure, it's an annoying part of the game, but screwing with it like that feels like it just unbalances the experience in some ways. In the Pixel Remasters, I just have less of a sense of danger when going through a dungeon or traveling in the world map, because there's a convenient way to make sure we have so much less risk of biting off more than we can chew. Hell, that's one of my many issues with Final Fantasy 15. Outside of plot-related stuff, it's just too easy to run away and avoid dealing with the trouble. And when you have too much freedom in picking your fights, and you know what you're doing, you're very unlikely to run into any fights outside of bosses that make you go, oh shit. Not too sure why I thought we could walk through that waterfall there. Ah well, at least we're seeing water as we fight the water-based enemies now. And holy crap, I certainly do like the design of the Hydra here. Sure, it's only got 2 heads instead of more like a Hydra typically does, but the grey body with red stripes just looks badass. How many times have we been hit by that tsunami at this point? Its animation makes me think it's supposed to be something ultra special, but it's been spammed way too much. Anyway, so ice does more damage to gators than electricity. Bit strange that gators don't share the same weaknesses as other water-based enemies, but I suppose that's something meant to make the fights interesting enough that we can't just spam the same things over and over to mindlessly get through a battle. Definitely feels like we're running lower on MP than I'd like at the moment. This clip is certainly going to end soon, but unfortunately, it's not going to end at a save point. I had to cut the raw footage at an awkward point to avoid things going over half an hour long. Guess we'll have to see how much longer it'll take for me to get our team to some legitimate rest in the next clip. Granted, if I was willing to fast forward, it wouldn't have been such an issue, but I'm not going out of my way to grind in this game, so fast forwarding just wouldn't feel right. Right. Can't move in diagonals, so that opening there doesn't mean anything to us. It's kind of funny, since a lot of more modern games love to force the player to go through uncomfortably tight spaces, and that looks like just the kind of space they would force us to crawl through. By the way, how did two massive snakes like that manage to sneak up on us? Oh yeah, we lose money occasionally if we run. I'd probably know that if I bothered running more often in this game. Considering how I generally don't use that option, you'd think I'd feel over-leveled by now, but no. I'm questioning if I'm under-leveled and under-prepared for what's to come. Probably should have used lightning against the Floodworm individually instead of casting spells on everyone at once. That might help make these fights a bit less grueling to go through. But it feels like we're doing reasonably well, even if I'm not using the most efficient means to brawl our way through each wave of repeating enemies. Definitely says something that Yang is powerful enough to outdo the black mages for damage. Granted, he doesn't need to worry about if this or that spell is all that effective, and doesn't need to worry about running out of stamina. It's just funny that a guy who punches and kicks the hell out of massive monsters is more effective against hydras and demonic-looking worms than someone who can summon lightning and fireballs out of nowhere. And it's kind of a series-wide thing that hand-to-hand fighters are always obscenely badass, even back in the original game. That possibly has more to do with my general combat style in these games than the monk being objectively better than a black mage. I've always preferred a more physical team than a magic-focused one, and it's kind of surprising that I've been enjoying this game so much and am eager to eventually do the remake when there are so many moments where they force us to have a magic-heavy team. I don't even feel like I've been properly adapting to the different team makeups I've been given over the course of this game, but there's no denying the fact that since the game knows what characters you're gonna have and the approximate level they should be at, the encounters are tailor-made for them at quite a few points. Though, as I said before, our supplies when we get there feel a bit shaky. Games can have a bit of a tough time balancing between giving the player freedom to do what they want and making things more linear. And in terms of gameplay, the linearity seems to be working for the most part, with just a few bumps in this game. I just wish that the story was more engrossing as we fought our way through all these places we absolutely have to go through to reach the next major plot point.